Our next speaker will share how in-person community at Atlassian grew from an under-resourced side project to one of the top initiatives in the company. You'll work together to identify which eye-catching metrics and prove you should use and how to prove the value to your executive team. You'll learn how to measure and track against those metrics and how to back it up with tremendous growth and scale. Ashley Elder equips the Atlassian User Group leaders and deepens engagement with user group members globally. Her passion for community began while working in healthcare, leading her to manage communities in both nonprofit and tech. A proud Boston native and current in Austin, Texas transplant, Ashley's loyal to things in New England while enjoying the superior weather, hospitality, and queso of Austin. Talking about ROI and getting buy-in in your community, please give a big CMX welcome to Ashley Elder.
So I feel like a lot of that applause was probably for queso, but I'm going to pretend it was for me. I'm going to get what I can. I'm Ashley, really happy to talk to you guys this afternoon and share a little bit more about the community I work for and with, and how we try to get value internally, especially with our executive leadership team. So wanted to again share a little bit about the organization I work for and then the community that I help empower. So Atlassian is a software company and we create tools and products to help teams work better together. Our mission is to unleash the potential in every team. And I'm sharing with you our values because they obviously guide who we are and what we do, but it really helped kind of ripple into our community, especially the in-person community that I work with, and kind of help build a case for why we needed to make our community more of a priority. I think the one that is most, relevant to our community is to not F the customer. I'm glad we didn't pull that whole font out there, but I think it's really important to keep our customers at top of mind. For us, our customers are kind of directly equal our community members. So a bit more about our user groups. So for about the past decade, people have come in person in different cities around the world to share best practices, get use cases around how to use our products, and solve issues with one another. And so obviously they're the experts using our products. They know it a lot better than the people building it. And the way in which this community is organized is kind of ambassador style. So we have user group leaders who are volunteers that are hosting events anywhere from quarterly to monthly to Toronto, Canada, who held 3 events in April. And just again, trying to engage kind of their micro communities around the world. This is actually our St. Petersburg, Russia user group right here. So I'm gonna not really go through all of this, but essentially our community has started a little over 10 years ago and had nothing to do with Atlassian. It was a group of users in McLean, Virginia. We had no idea they were getting together to share best practices. When we got wind of it, we thought, well, we should probably build a program around that. And kind of fast forward a few years, I went from a 1-lady show to 3 full-time community managers, which was really exciting. And we currently have actually a bit more than that, closer to 150 active user groups. When I started at the end of 2014, we were just over 9,000 community members in this in-person community group. And actually at LastPass, we had our annual user conference last week. We're a little over 22,000. We have 250 leaders in about 150 cities, about 40 countries. We have 130 events in the past year. And that's a significant growth, 430 events. From 2014, a little less than 3 years ago, we saw about 160 events. And I think a huge part of that was being able to get kind of value and buy-in from teams outside of our little community team who really started to understand and gave us the resources that we needed, but it wasn't without a fight. So I think the first thing that really matters, and what we've heard a lot today, is telling that story first. Data is really great, but you've got to somehow get your foot in the door. And for us, it was kind of humanizing our community and showing how they were unique in some pretty cool ways. And being able to showcase that to a wide range of people in our organization. This is a quote from a user group member in Austin, Texas. Atlassian products have changed the trajectory of my career. And this is pretty badass. Obviously, this is a soundbite that anyone in marketing or even in our products team is going to be pretty excited about. I think it shows that people are not only passionate about the way that, for us in our community, they're using the tools, but that it's really changing the way they're thinking about their career. On kind of a more unique note, I plan my wedding using Jira. This is a product management tool that we have, and shockingly, I've actually heard this over the past year like 3 or 4 times. Between this, bathroom renovations, honey-do lists, a lot of people are taking products that they're using every day in a professional sense and setting, and they're taking it on a personal level. So again, it's showing that our community and our community of users, it kind of transcends just this, like, I do this thing at work and then I go home. It's like, hey, this product's really helping me in a lot of different aspects of my life. And I think our structure as well has really helped support that. So again, about a year ago, I was very lucky, and I recognize this as a community manager, to be able to have a team. And I have a fantastic colleague who works with me in Austin, Texas, who's able to really look after the Americas regions. So all of really supporting our user group leaders in the Americas. I also have an amazing colleague in Amsterdam, and she focuses on supporting, yeah, all right, love Amsterdam. She focuses on supporting EMEA and APAC regions. And I think having, we do work as a large group together, but having kind of a go-to and an individual who's really able to cultivate relationships with our communities in different regions has helped us be able to kind of pull out these really awesome stories. So yes, qualitative data is your friend. It's your foot in the door. I think for us, we've done things like invite our president and our CEOs to our annual recognition dinner that happens at our user conference. So if you guys have some sort of conference that your customers or community are a part of, have a time to recognize them and invite some important people that you think really need to understand kind of the energy and magic that you feel in your community. I think we all can see that with people talking. We get excited, we know what it means, but for a lot of people that kind of gets confusing outside of our magic community manager bubble. So how do you demonstrate value other than just all the feels? Who here knows that this is a great photo? Are you guys excited when I see some people are talking, they're networking and engaging, they're sharing best practices, that's community. But my president would be like, hey, that's really cool. It's a bunch of people chatting and a really nice high-res black and white photo. So what I tried to do is think a little bit more about what are things that matter to us on a global company scale. So what are metrics and things that are easily understood by people in my company? We are not turning our community into a sales community, but how can I think through ways in which our community is already working that we can kind of make sure that we're showcasing and leveling up to the right people? And for me, that was understanding renewals and NPS. Those are 2 things that we care about. As a technology company that creates products, we want people renewing their use of our products. Additionally, we want people to be generally happy with how they're using it and to not absolutely hate them. That's how we get our NPS score. So what we're able to do is kind of isolate our user group, our community activity, and show that we were kind of, I guess, pointing towards a positive correlation to some of these goals. So step 1 for me was befriending my local data colleague. So for the most part, you guys probably have someone, it might be you, that really understands the data with your company as a whole. Cookies help for me. I'm not quite sure. It might be queso for you all, beer, whatever you want. But being able to talk to someone to understand what kind of data do we have on people that, for us, use our products and are also a part of our community. The information I was able to find was awesome. So what we basically did was take domains. So we understood and were able to separate out all of the domains that use our products who had Atlassian User Group members of our community within them, so OG domains. We compared them with domains that had no community members in them, non-OG domains. And what we were able to find is that renewal rates for our products with OG domains were 6% higher compared to renewals for domains that had no user group or community engagement. We also found with our product NPS that user group domains, those communities, had a 20 to 30 point increase in NPS per product. In some cases, that was nearly doubling the NPS score. So what it really proved to us was we had a captive audience. People were understanding our products a lot better, therefore renewing them, because who wants to move to something like midway? That's a pain in the butt. And we knew that they were happier because they were giving us a higher satisfaction score, likely because they knew what they were doing and they were finding ways to use our products more efficiently. This is a great example of a quote just from someone who went to a user group, and for us it's really important because it was the first time they actually showed up. Our user group events are usually after work. You're fighting traffic to go talk about a bunch of products you used all day. For me, I think what would get me to an in-person user group would have to like highly circulate around puppies, some sort of animal, like wine, and maybe like Netflix shows. So these people are already like way ahead of me. They're like living in 3017, I guess you could say. But for us, it's, you know, being able to show this is important to one of our product managers as well. So again, being able to show that we had this data, this increased correlation in renewals and NPS kind of catches their attention and knows that we have a captive audience for them to engage. All of a sudden, rather than me begging people to give me content that our customers and our community were really hungry for, they were coming to me and saying, hey, can we present at an event? Or we have a new feature coming out and we've created a slide deck that the user group leaders can present out to their members. So again, showing that value in a way that they understood was really valuable. So I talked a little bit about the stories that we tell, the qualitative data that we kind of had to get the foot in the door. I've talked about how we thought through what are easy wins when it comes to data or other kind of metrics that are important to our company as a whole, and how we're able to show that we kind of positively move the needle in the right direction. But I also want to talk a little bit more about how, as an internal community team, do we measure our own ROI and what are our metrics to prove success. So I think it's really important to think through nailing your year-over-year growth goals. And so, I mean, this is my favorite Pinterest fail ever, but in this analogy, like, you don't want to be the Cookie Monster with half your face melted off. Like, you want to be the amazing, beautifully created cupcake. And so for us, it was really important to think through, we've had some amazing growth, about 50 to 70% year over year over the past 2 to 3 years, but that might not be something that we're going to continue on for 5 or 10 years. So how can we be really thoughtful when we think through our year over year growth goals? And for me, it was really looking back and seeing, okay, what were different areas that we saw big spikes in engagement in our numbers, and what could we potentially attribute it to? And there were a lot of things that, until I really sat back and reflected, I didn't realize had such an impact. The first was switching to an event platform that was much easier for our user group leaders to use. We had no idea that that was such a massive barrier to creating events, so thank you, Bevy. We also did things like create email triggers, so sending notifications to our community. When a leader posted a new event, it automatically sent an email to everyone in that community letting them know there was a new event and that they should RSVP. Also, huge thing. Having actual staff, so 3 community team members instead of 1, huge thing for us. And then also, you know, having that buy-in, getting that interest from our executive team. Our president went on a roadshow to 4 different cities and answered a bunch of questions from our community, which then spurred different product managers wanting to go and share updates as well and get feedback and have our community members be part of different betas. So that was kind of how I was able to look through and see, okay, here are all the things that we've done. Clearly they've had an impact, and we were able to see when we launched them, you know, where did our metrics rise or fall? And it's really helped us understand to either, you know, make sure we're not setting the bar way, way too high or way too low. So 3 of our must-haves on our user group community team is activity, engagement, and feedback. So for activity, it's really important with our in-person community to know how often they're coming together. That's really when they're engaging in their community. But it's also important, again, to think through engagement. So if we have a whole bunch of events, but no one's showing up, or it's 2 or 3 people, that's probably not building meaningful community. It's not allowing people to really share best practices and learn from one another. So we care about how many members are RSVPing, and more importantly, how many are actually showing up to these events. And then my personal favorite is feedback. So again, if we're trying to build a case for why our community is kick-ass and we should get like a whole $1 million more, let's say, we need to understand who they are. How can we weave that narrative and tell that story? Who the heck is attending? What do they see as a value add to showing up? Again, there's no puppies, there is wine, and there's not usually Netflix. So there's got to be some reason that they find value in this after work. So kind of going into that is knowing who our community is. And I want to talk a little bit about how we're able to get this information. we launch a survey annually to all of our community members, and we try to understand a bit more about who they are, what they do, the size of their organization, what motivates them, and what content or what's driving them to show up. What are they looking for? And what I initially found before I had this sort of information was a lot of product managers or people that I wanted content from or support from weren't super interested in giving it to me because they had this bias of who our community was made up of. They thought it was people who are enterprise level, super users, super, super high tech. And they're like, a lot of what we're looking for with entry level or maybe talking about how our products have more ability to support people in non-technical roles, those aren't your communities. So sorry, but I'm not gonna kind of prioritize content for you guys over other things. So once I had this sort of information, I was able to say, you're totally wrong. First of all, we had a pretty even split between community members and where they were from. So we had a bunch, 35% that were from companies that were 1,000 members or over. And we had 35% from companies that had less than 100 people. In addition, 30% of our community came from non-technical roles. And for those who were in more technical roles, there was definitely a pretty good variety. Again, this finally both kind of pushed back on some assumptions and got people more excited to participate with us. In addition, we wanted to let people know that our community is taking the information that they're getting and they're pushing it back into their companies. For a company like Atlassian that doesn't have a traditional sales model, this is really important. We really do rely on word of mouth growth and kind of this customer evangelism, both within companies and to friends to talk about using our products. We found that 71% of our members are sharing information back into their companies. A good chunk are saying that it's impacted the way that they work, and some are even trying new products because of it. That's like product manager gold. All of a sudden, again, they were knocking on our door, and it was really exciting to see them wanting to participate with us. And in general, our members were pretty happy and found that these were really useful events when it came to adopting our products. What we tried to do again was mirror a larger metric that we knew that our larger company cared about. So we were able to show that we had a 58.2 NPS for our user group members and a pretty kick-ass user group leader NPS of 95 that we've actually been able to maintain for over a year. I can go into that a lot of other times, so feel free to talk to me later about some of our incentive programs that helped with that. So I think what I've been able to share is being able to ask those right questions has helped us share out the right answers. And so I wanted to talk to you a bit more about how have we shared this out in our community of Atlassian, so internally in our company, and the ways in which that's really helped us get even more buy-in. So a few little ones are just objective and key result monthly progress. So this goes all the way up to the executive leadership in my company. Others are weekly snapshots that our marketing department does. So getting other people, maybe outside of your smaller department, to be engaged. Just let people know what you're doing. This helps me. I can share, hey, this is what's going really great. This is how amazing our community is. But also say, this is where we're struggling, or this is where I need help or resources from people. The most important and successful thing that we've been able to have is quarterly blogs. And so these are blogs that my team and I write, and they go out to the entire organization. And we've seen some really awesome traction, people engaging, commenting on them, getting some CEO likes, which is a really big deal, and just being able to highlight how amazing our community is. So I wanted to go through quickly a sample update with you guys, and I'll touch on each of these points. First is sharing stories. So what are some really easy, fun kind of news clips that we can share about our community? Nairobi, Kenya, one of our unbelievable new user groups, has had the highest attendance of any other user group this quarter. And we didn't even know that we really had user groups in Nairobi, or users, so that was really exciting. Celebrating that our user group leaders are giving us an awesome NPS. And talking a little bit about one of our former user group leaders who wrote a book about one of our products that she goes around and shares kind of best practices on how to use our tools. That's pretty awesome. We share stats, so basically sharing, how many new members do we have? What's our year-over-year growth? That's really exciting. People were blown away by some of these numbers and had no idea how powerful our community was. And then we share the scoop. We shared actual quotes from our user group members. We give post-event surveys after each event that we have. Anyone who RSVPs, we ask them to fill out a survey. So it's able to, again, share what's going really well. Apparently people really want to get portfolio enterprise in Kansas City. That's great for our product team to know. And they're just giving examples of either what's really working or how we can continue to support this community. And then events. So I source in a calendar of every user group that's coming up, and I challenge people. We're a fairly global company, so if you're local to one of these user groups, go and present, or at least be there. Be able to raise your hand and say, hey, I'd love to hear feedback, or ask me your questions. If you're traveling somewhere, please join a user group, or tack on a day, and they'll definitely host an event because you're there. And even just having this sort of visibility has really encouraged people to start participating more within Atlassian. So in conclusion, basically the 3 takeaways that I hope that you've gotten from this are correlate your goals. So you'll have your own goals as a community, but what are things that you can roll up to a larger company and metric that everyone seems to understand and value? Define your own metrics. So how do you guys prove bulletproof value internally? And then feedback is your very best friend. So ask the right questions to gain really valuable feedback that you can share out to your larger organization. So thanks so much, really appreciate it.